right, it's 6:01. We will call this meeting in order. Councilman Woods, would you give us the invocation, please?
Oh, grateful and merciful Father, it is once again, your Lord, you have allowed us to assemble together. Father, we thank you first and foremost for life, health, and strength. Father, we are meeting around the table, Lord, with the citizens. Father, we hope that you guide us and lead us in the right direction, Lord. Allow us to make the right decision to make Marlboro County a better place. Father, we ask this in your Son, Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you. All right, we're to the approval of agenda items. We do need to add contractual matters to the executive session, number 11. We'll be going into executive session at item number 11 for discussion of personnel matters and contractual matters.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion we accept that amendment.
So.
All right, all in favor? All right, it's unanimous. Moving along to the presentations. We have Mr. Keith Jones with Homeland Security. Ms. Sumter, if you want to make introductions, and we also have Mr. Matt Norris of the State Election Commission on the election security.
How are you doing today?
Hey.
My associate, Keith Jones, is a security advisor with the Department of Homeland Security. He was regrettably not able to make it this evening. He planned to be here, but he had a mandatory trip to Washington, D.C. scheduled sort of last minute. So I've got a prepared statement to read from him. And if you do have any further questions or need any information specifically from him, then I'm happy to give you his contact information and get you in contact with him. My name is Matt Norris. I'm a security analyst at the South Carolina State Elections Commission. In April of this year, the Department of Homeland Security and the South Carolina State Election Commission partnered to conduct routine physical security assessments on all South Carolina counties. This assessment was done within the guidelines of the DHS Secure at First Entry program, referred to as SAFE, which is a set of standards and measurements used to assess the physical safety and security of a public facility. This is most commonly used to assess facilities utilized by organizations deemed critical infrastructure. The federal government has designated all elections operations as critical infrastructure and treats all elections offices, facilities accordingly. This assessment identified a number of safety and security concerns with the Marlboro County Voter Registration and Elections Office. Severe lack of storage space was noted, but beyond that concern specifically, there were other issues observed that do not meet the minimum requirements set by the SAFE program standards to consider a critical infrastructure facility as safe or secure. It is recommended that at a minimum, funding be allocated to address each of these concerns. As a temporary measure, having an off-site location to store some of the elections equipment is an acceptable short-term solution. However, in the long term, this would mean that both the office and the storage facility location would be subject to the same level of scrutiny and should both be assessed by the standards of the SAFE program. Adding an off-site storage location should not preclude the need to address the security and safety concerns of the main office. For this reason, it is also reasonable to consider relocating the office entirely, to allow all security concerns to be addressed before relocating and to ensure the office space can be co-located with the equipment storage space. As a security advisor for the Department of Homeland Security, I will be glad to assist with the planning phase of preparing for such a move, and DHS and the SEC will schedule another physical security assessment of the new facility if it comes to that. That is the statement that I have from Keith. A few things that I wanted to denote on behalf of the State Elections Commission. DHS nor the SEC have authority to mandate that security concerns be addressed. All we can do is identify the issues and make recommendations for how to address them. DHS has issued a formal report of the findings of this assessment to the State Elections Commission, which has been shared with the Elections Director. These findings aren't subject to FOIA requests, but some details can be shared by the SEC on a need-to-know basis with relevant stakeholders. The findings of the assessment will be shared with the Election Commission's Audit Division and will be the subject of a future audit to determine if the recommendations made by DHS and the SEC were followed. The determination of that audit will be made public. If you need any more specifics on that, I can give contact information out to reach out to the SEC, or if you have any immediate questions or concerns that I can address now, I can answer any questions that you have.
Mr. Matt, can we get a copy of all your recommendations? Is it made available, or you just made a statement out and it's not?
We can make them available to you guys on request from the SEC. It has to go through our legal and public information and that whole deal. And just due to the public nature of a meeting, it's not something that I can go through on a step-by-step here. But yes, it is something that we can make available, yes.
Mr. Mayor, what are the perceived consequences of failing to address these security concerns?
So the idea of the SAFE program is to do the best job as possible of anticipating potential security and safety concerns that could occur. Outcome of not addressing the concerns is the safety, the personal safety of the staff and the integrity of the elections, both perceived integrity and real integrity of the elections equipment that's stored at those locations and the results of the election in general. So those things aren't addressed, and then a worst case scenario does occur. All we can do at that point is look back and say, hey, we identified these issues and we didn't address them, and now we're in this worst case scenario.
Well, I mean, you said there's a standard. I mean, if we need to know what the standard is to be able to get to zero. So if you said it needs to be some funding there, but we need to know what's required. What is the standard? Is it the security of the personnel working, the security of the files? What's the security measures that you're?
The SAFE program seeks to address all of those things. It seeks to address the safety of the personnel as well as the security of the facility. In this particular case, that concerns the security of the elections technology and equipment that are stored there. It's both of those things. And now as far as the standards, again, the recommendations that are made as part of that report that we can make available if need be, the recommendations all bring address the identified issues into line with those standards.
So will we get a copy of that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay. We can definitely make that available.
I think really and truly, sir, we should have had a copy of it so we'll know what we're having to vote on or decide on. I do appreciate that, but yes, we definitely need a copy of that.
Yep, that can absolutely be made available.
Thank you.
Does DHS, and I know they did in this last go-round, have funding available on a matched grant type program?
Yes, sir. Well, as long as the same grants are issued by the federal government. We have every reason to expect that they will be, but we don't receive absolute certainty that those same grants will be available until probably the October-November timeframe, and then those funds do become available in the beginning of the following year. And as you mentioned, it is a matching type of a grant, so paid up front, and then the process through SLED pays it all back.
It should be noted that this is not necessarily a surprise. These concerns have been addressed with council before. And we don't need to kind of table whatever we need to do to ensure the integrity of our election and the safety of those officials who, in this political climate, almost putting their lives on the line to run an election. We need to take it very seriously and do whatever we can, not tomorrow, today, to begin to address those security concerns.
I agree.
And your recommendation is to really find a new facility or another facility?
That would be the ideal situation. Like I kind of read here, it's a twofold thing. Because I know that there has been concerns that have been brought up about storage. That's why that was addressed here. And that is absolutely a need, but if there's two separate facilities, that doubles the burden essentially. And then not only that, but the things that are needed at the current facility are a lot compared with just choosing a different facility that already has a lot of those concerns addressed.
What type time frames are we looking at?
So at current, as far as the audits, there's nothing scheduled. We work with counties on those timeframes. If it is the sort of a thing where we can put a plan in place and have a projected time, that's fine. So there aren't any hard deadlines at this time.
But we have, as Dr. Johnson said, we have discussed this, and we will be coming up with an alternative solution tonight at this meeting, actually, and to address it and see how things are going. So we've looked into it, and we'll be addressing that.
Excellent.
Any other questions?
All right. If anything else is needed, like I said, you guys can reach out to myself or to Keith, and we can do that through the director and just let us know.
All right,
Thank
Mr.
you guys
Norton.
very much for your time tonight.
Thank you. Doris, do we have, I know we were talking about,
We've looked at an alternate place for maybe not only just the voter registration office, but some other buildings too. And that's something we're going to hold for discussion, after later on. But we have been looking into trying to address the concern.
okay. Okay, next up is Mr. Luther Jonikin with the Workforce Committee.
Good afternoon, everyone. Chairman Midgley, members of the board, office of the county, and ladies and gentlemen, I promise you I will not be long. First of all, why am I here? For the first time in a very, very long time, I happen to be fortunate enough to be involved in some meetings that were called by, basically spearheaded by the county council regarding workforce development. And especially this happened about the time when we were losing, looks like everybody was eating our lunch, I'll put it that way, right and left. Every time you turn around, there was something negative economically being announced. So I guess I didn't have any better sense than to say, this ain't what it ought to be. I recall those kind of conversations when we were situated in this very room you're in now with us as something called a Rural Economic Alliance, and then the then Marlboro County Development Board across the way over there. And I thought these kind of things would have been behind us. At least I thought we would be doing it in more of a united way. So consequently, I asked during those meetings, and actually after getting positive responses from state, regional, local, and what have you, representatives that day, and why hadn't this been going on, and why did it take a plant closing to get you to come up here and say something to us? And as it all ended up, the final comment, at least that I recall, was certainly commending the group for at least coming. And here was a bright spot. That day, in the presence of some 24 or so invitees, it was pledged that a united effort would be put in place, okay, to address the workforce shortage or deficits that we have in the county. It would be to no avail if we had a mega plant like the one you just heard about, or the ones you're hearing about all around the state now related to the various things such as the electronic vehicles, the batteries, etc. It would be to our no avail if they came today and said we're going to set a plant right on our industrial park, because we would have zero employee ready to go to work. Fortunately for us, the EV industry, and I'll get back to that in just a second, it's going to take a while to ramp up. So in light of the fact that we pledged that day to carry forward, that was in March, early March of this year. And because of, I'll just say, various circumstances that occurred, nothing was done. So I called upon our chairman to see if he would be okay with, not to any commitment, I don't have any kind of authorization or anything like that, nor should I have. But would he have any objections to my at least kind of kicking the dust around and see what's going on out there? Because obviously something was going on for these kind of activities to be being approved across the state, and us being sort of still out there, shall we, floundering or wandering in the wilderness, so to speak. And he was kind enough to say, yes, go right ahead. And I asked him to make sure that all the other council folk were aware of what I was doing, because the last thing I wanted it to be, I've had enough of that in my lifetime to it be something that, here goes Luke poking his nose into something he's got nothing to do with. Well, I am at least still a citizen of this county. And we cannot let our county go down. We shouldn't have let it go down this low, but we certainly can't let it go down any lower. If you take away the prison population of about 3,000 to 6,000 inmates or so at the two prisons we have, do you realize that our population base is less than 20,000? Less than 20,000 people in the entire county. And that's down from at least back in the day when we were here, over 30,000. So there's 10,000, it's a 10,000 deficit, you know. So here's what I want to say. After getting the indulgence of your chairperson and others, I began to just simply ask questions. And what I found out was, and what I'm still finding out, is simply that all these different little workforce spots here and workforce spots there, that's a listing of some of them I handed to all of you, are out there. And then the next question says, okay, you're out there, what services are you bringing to Marlboro County? And you know what I got back? Nobody's asking. And it's still, as it has been for decades, if not centuries, the squeaky wheel gets what? The squeaky wheel gets oil. So it's time for us to, and I hope you'll agree with this, to acknowledge that and begin to really do something for ourselves. The old bootstrap story. Well, if we don't have any boots, you know, what the good are straps? Let's get some boots and some straps and begin to pull things together for our own benefit. And here's what the essence of my presence is all about tonight, or this afternoon. Please, please, we have an opportunity now to do some things positive for Marlboro County. Let's do that. Let's no longer act as 3 or 4 or 5 different islands separated by nothing. Okay? Let's come together, county, city, school board, public, private sector, federal, etc. Everybody, and especially the public, because it's all about you, the grandchildren and the great-grands, etc. We're spending valuable tax dollars right now, for example, and I'm out involved with this a good bit at the high school. I can't seem to get away from that engineering training out there for those kids. We're training kids, and they're smart, and they're getting it. But we're training them to do what? When they get that little sheepskin, you never see them anymore. And can you blame them? What is it for them to do? And they'll tell you in a hot minute, Mr. Jonathan, no, I'm not coming back here. And I hear from these parents, I was over getting a battery changed in the car last weekend. And here comes the mother of one of my ex-students. Mr. Jonathan, he's down at Clemson in engineering. He says, he never will forget the experiences he got in that engineering class at the high school. He says, and he's in there as a mentor. They were surprised to see him come from Little Marlboro. So let's get out of this business about what we can't do. You know, it's as much an opportunity, or there should be as much of an opportunity for our kids as anywhere else. Okay? And we can do this, but it's going to take all of us. So what I'm asking too is that, acknowledging the way this was handled and the welcome that I got to move forward with a few things, let's don't stop. Let's go ahead and get our workforce committee up and running again. Let's have a quick meeting. When you ever decide on your on our administrator, etc. Let's have some things to put in front of them. Don't let them come in here hitting the ground cold, don't know what's going on. Because that's going to show what? That's going to show our two things. It's going to show our lack of interest, and in fact, it's going to show our ignorance. Because who's going to help? What's that issue? God bless the child that what? It's going to show our lack of trying to reach out and do for ourselves. Okay? Time is, in my sunset years, I guess you call them, I've been doing things like this too long and I know it. But the fact is, the problem doesn't seem to want to go away. And if they don't go away, I'm not going away for as long as I have breath in my body. So please, please acknowledge where you are, what you can do, and you're to be commended. I want to see I want to see a very tightly knit board working together with each other, working together with other councils and boards for the benefit of all the stakeholders in Marlboro County. That can be done. And it can be done with a lot less effort than you realize. Sometimes it's just ask the question. And I'll finish with this high note. Two things have happened in our state that is of mega significance. We know, and I'll go back to the EV business, the electronic vehicles and the batteries, etc. We know that's the new oil well. That's the new oil drilling well. Batteries are the new oil wells, okay? And you have a situation where just on early June, we had an announcement right there in Florence, not 30 minutes or so from where we are right now, for a 1.5 million square foot facility that's going to cater to BMW, making the batteries, etc., right across from the Wilson High School there in Florence, right? And it's going to employ, you've heard the news, I hope, it's going to employ supposedly around 1,200 people to 2,000 people to start with, more or less. And the good thing is this, it's going to take them a couple of years to get up and running. So what does that do? That gives us time to reach out to state commerce, to the feds, to everybody else who can help us, but most of all, reach out among ourselves and get our students ready. So when it comes time for that plant to open, our kids are ready to go to work. And those jobs are going to be at a minimum, already predicted, starting salary $60,000, $70,000, $80,000, depending on what the talents are. Right on the heels of that, just on the 27th of June, they announced right up here in Spartanburg, another plant. Okay, $1.5 billion investment. Same type of thoroughfare. Obviously, they're going to have to be connected because what is it? It's the Japanese-owned BMW Alliance. So we've got an opportunity that we've never had before. You know, maybe that's why COVID was such a disaster, because again, to quote an old adage, the darkest what is just before dawn. Let's make this dawn. Let's make this something we can all be proud of. And let's think about it when we're having our delights on the other side. At least you tried to do what you could do, for as long as you could do it. And for those who needed it most, our own. Thank you so much. If there are no questions, I'll be glad to answer anything you have. But that's what I wanted to say, and I appreciate you giving me an opportunity to say it without any objection. I'm going to continue what I'm doing, so when you do get the new people, we'll have something to lay on his or her plate to say, here it is, this is what we've been doing. Let's take up the baton and run.
Well, Mr. Johnny, I appreciate your efforts and your hard work on that committee, on the workforce committee. And then when we got together, you meeting up with everybody, I appreciate that work. Are there any
There's
questions?
a question for me then, sir. I appreciate you, Mr. Jonathan, so much, but one of the things I asked when we were going through boards and commissions, that we be made aware of what they're meeting, and as of today, I don't know whether the interim administrator have any idea, but I even asked her to find out when these boards, all commissions, and everybody's meeting. So at some time that they be made public, so that if one of us want to attend, or if the public want to attend. But I haven't gotten any information like that. So I'm going to say, no, and everybody wasn't aware, because I wasn't aware that any meetings were taking place. And I'm glad that they are. But I'm like to know what's going on in the county, especially with this workforce development, because even on these boards and commissions, I wondered what these people are doing, because I had a problem, and I still have a problem that so many people are serving on our boards and commissions who's been there for 20 and 25 years, And we can't move forward if everybody's at a standstill. But if it's somebody who's really working hard, I want to know that. I truly do. And what's going on in this county? Because since, I think it was January, December last year when y'all all met at the library, I hadn't seen anything with workforce development. I really hadn't.
Well, Ms. Lawson, your points are excellent and they're well taken. And please understand that
Right.
since March, there was no effort from the
County
authority
to
side to
move- right,
do
to
anything.
move
I
forward.
just reached out and said, could I do what I could within the limited authority that I have, reporting back to you and this is the first report, that I run into things, et cetera. So what I would hope is that you're saying to me now, for example, Chairman Bozard has been out there working. We all were at that meeting. Some of you were at that meeting. In fact, I know you were. And we're trying to see if we can't have an official meeting and even have it in a way that most of you could come if you wanted to, if not all of you. But I'm just about now saying, if you like what you hear, then get behind it, or let's go together and make it happen. So I hear you, and I think everybody in this room hears you, and it's good to hear someone on the authority, at the authority level that you set, being express those concerns and willingness to roll up your sleeve, but that's what it's going to take. Which no surprise that you've done that all your life. I happen to know that. So, it's just more the same.
And now that two of us are on the workforce with PD Carr, definitely we want to have some information to share with the workforce. I do.
Any other comments?
Thank you.
Is there anything that's happening in your communication with Mr. Bogart? What is it, Bogart? What is
He is
Bozart.
Bozart.
Mr. Bozart.
I talked with him last night, and he is, from what I understand, he is focusing on. He's come out of some, confidentially speaking, in a low-key way, some health issues that he's overcome, thank goodness, and overcoming. And he's working in that arena, and has more to do with the elementary and middle focus that he started along with previous individuals that were involved in the process. Right. And he is to, frankly speaking, call me back tomorrow morning. And I was hoping he could have been here tonight, etc., to share whatever. But yeah, that's moving along. And those are interesting enough. You see that list I gave you?
Yes.
Okay. Look at the names they have beside Marlboro County. Do you know this person? Does anybody know this person? I mean, we just opened up a can of worms, but that's the way I live, I guess. There's listed there, this what is her name? Ferguson, whatever. Anybody know her? All right. She's listed for us, she's listed for Hartsville, she's listed for, and we never see this person.
I understand.
So it's just a lot of stuff we got to straighten out.
Thank you.
I understand that, but my question was, is there any funding that you know of that they have uncovered? I know Northeastern Tech is...
Show me the money. Another man, and I'm taking up too much time, but I told you I want to let it be on your side, and I'm glad to answer whatever I can. That day, back in early, around May 3rd or 4th, March 3rd or 4th, the people from State Commerce,
right,
other offices, they offered, you all were there, we were ready to put a few dollars in to help this workforce deal move forward. Nothing was, for whatever reason, I'll just leave it like that, they weren't gotten back to. In fact, when I attempted to reconnect, if you will, a lot of them said, we wonder why we haven't heard from you, from the director that's listed on there to others. So they're waiting on a real connect. Okay. And that's the ball's in our court. And it always has been, believe it or not. Okay, when you get out of bed in the morning, nobody puts their shoes on but you. So, that's just the way it is. But yeah, to answer your question, the money's out there, but we got to show an interest. And that idea of bringing together the local group of those 24 plus, and that day we said it would be open up to anyone and everyone from the public to the private to whomever that wanted to get involved. So we're at that point, and thanks to your continuing commitment, I'll say it that way, we'll make something happen.
We appreciate the work you're doing, Mr. Jonica, because we know it's gonna take the citizens and the community doing their part.
That's right.
But I echo Ms. Lawson for us to be hearing about this right now versus coming from our own leadership, so we'll be abreast of what's going on. So now we can assist in your efforts. It's disappointing to me that I'm first hearing about this when you're presenting and you're under the impression that all of us up here are in the know about what's going on. And I've been hard on us as council members. I have been. I can admit that. Because to whom much is given, much is required. We're stewards of this county. And if we're too busy within our own right to be able to do things like this, then we should really reevaluate if this the position that we need to be on. If we can't meet outside of meetings, if we can't put that extra effort in to ensure that workforce development and other things that are important to this county that we as council members, as leaders, as policymakers, as governing authorities are not even aware of meetings and things that are going on in our county. How can we properly govern? How can we properly disseminate information to our citizens when we don't even know? A phone call or email. Mr. Jonica is spearheading the workforce deals when they meet, and if anybody want to come in. We have ideas. We have knowledge that we can bring, to the table. And for me to just to be hearing about this, right now when you're presenting, it's disheartening knowing that we've been at the top of unemployment for the last 27 months, if I'm not mistaken. 26 months. For us not to know that you're spearheading this effort and we're sitting back, it's disheartening, and we are not going to be able to capitalize on what we need to capitalize on if council is not spearheading some of these efforts in conjunction with our local citizens and our local partners, external and internal partners. If we're not reevaluating how we're governing right now with the losses that we've taken over the last year, I honestly can say, I don't know what's the future for Marlboro County if we don't understand that a lot of the things that have gone on in this county has gone on upon our watch, for years. And if we're not, if the light bulb hasn't come on yet and say, you know what, if we're still doing what we've done in the past and it haven't resulted in anything, we've actually gone backwards, and we still want to chart a path forward using the same methodologies. That's not good research. That's not good scientific research. We have to begin to be involved with our citizens and understanding what's going on in these different meetings so we can be informed on the decision that we're making to connect with Florence County. You say we got 2 years, 2 or 3 years. We could be doing some things right now and get that residual. We might not get 2,000 jobs, we might get 150. We might can make a part of a part that they need in Florence that can bring 50, 75 jobs here to Marlboro County. If we're not thinking like that, if we're not thinking outside the box, then we are actually leaving our citizens, out to bay. If we're not changing up our processes and procedures, if we're not doing that as council members, as a governing body, then it's really and truly hurting our citizens and hurting our opportunities for growth.
Well, I'll say the same thing you just said to Councilwoman
Lawson.
Councilwoman Lawson. What you said is music to my ears. I would ask for and received permission to do what I talked to you about less than, 3 or 4 weeks ago, at best. So if I can come back to you with this kind of information in 2 or 3 weeks, just think what should have been and could have been going on all the time. But we're late, but the game isn't over. And now that we know, first of all, you gotta learn the rules. And what I'm finding out is the rules haven't changed too much from when I was sitting right in this room working with that little rule alliance thing we were trying to do for the county. It's still about, hard work, know what's going on out there, and reaching out and asking for it, but not only that, to recount something I've already said, being willing to roll up your sleeve and make it happen. So, again, I'm not an excuse person, but I'm on the job now, so to speak. I guess I shouldn't even refer to it as a job, but about less than a month. So you know what's possible if that kind of information is emerging everywhere. They're planning another. This thing is getting long, folks. Don't blame me because it's the questions. We would have had, these are Japanese plans, okay? For example, you might know this. Tesla, Elon Musk wanted to come into South Carolina before any of the Japanese wanted to set foot here. But our dumb laws, excuse my expression, kept them out because of certain conditions under which a new plant had, especially electrical plants. It was tied to the oil industry and all that other kind of stuff. Well, to make a long story shorter, Tesla has now worked out a way to get around all that, and they're going to be focusing down in Charleston. So this stuff is no joke. And again, the key thing you said is we got time for change. We got time to get ready for all this, folks. We have the time. We usually don't have the time. Wes, you can't climb up the ladders no more, but you can watch the young ones do it, right? Okay. And that's what we're gonna have to do. We're gonna have to encourage those who can, give them the little bit of knowledge we may have left in some of these veins that are still not clogged as yet, and make it all happen. But thank you. That's the point well taken. Everybody. Anything else from anybody?
Well, look, we'll schedule another meeting like we had before.
Good.
But also, and of course, we can't all meet, and that, it'd be a committee meeting, and if
Okay.
we have more than five.
So we can
then
go ahead and have us plan that?
We will plan that, and then we might even put it on a schedule for the open discussion with all of council.
That's super.
Okay.
That's super. I'll keep working.
Okay, thank
So
you.
you tell me to stop. All right, thank you all. Sorry about the time that was spent.
Okay, moving to the approval of minutes, we have the workshop from May 9th. I need a motion to approve. Are there any abstentions from that?
Motion to approve workshop May 9th.
I abstain, I was absent.
Okay.
Second.
And I abstain because I didn't vote on those minutes.
Okay, all in favor? Okay, Susan, you get the count? All right, regular meeting, May 9th.
So move.
Second.
Okay, any abstentions?
I am.
All right, all four? Call meeting May 18th.
Second.
Any abstentions? All in favor? Did you get the count?
Abstain.
Ms. Lawson, okay. Unanimous. Oh, you abstain? Dr. Johnson abstain. All right, call meeting May 24th.
Second.
Any abstentions?
Abstain.
All in favor? Any against? Ms. Law?
I'm just abstaining from that meeting
Okay.
too. I didn't vote for it.
All right, call meeting June 2nd.
So move.
Second.
Any abstentions? One. Ms. Lawson, you abstained on it?
No, I'm not abstaining.
Okay. All four? Okay, call meeting June 6th.
So moved.
Second.
Any abstentions? All right, all in favor? That is unanimous. All right, well, moving on to the public hearing. Ordinance 837, an ordinance to approve the capital improvement plan for Marlboro County for the period of fiscal year 2024 to 2028.
Good evening, council members, Mr. Chairman, Ms. Sumter. Yeah, before you, the capital plan, and it has been updated. We did have a meeting last Thursday, invited department heads as well as elected officials to voice some of their input on the plan as developed, and of course we've been incorporated those items into the document. We'll start with just saying we've got roughly $700,000 of different pieces of equipment, particularly trucks between Public Works, Planning and Zoning, Animal Shelter, Public Buildings, Tax Assessor, Recreation, and E911. Roughly $2.5 million in improvements with public buildings. One of the things we found was that we've got some aged HVAC systems. We've got a number of HVAC systems that are somewhere between 25, 26, 28 years old. So obviously replacement of those HVAC units are going to be very important over the next few years. We've also included LED lighting as a means of trying to provide some energy savings as well. Other items that are included, we've got, of course, the Sheriff's Department's got considerable number of vehicles, and we've got about $1,250,000 in vehicle replacement within that. Of course, this is a five-year period. We've got some items here such as a records management and mobile stations generator system at the Sheriff's Department. We don't, we need that. It's about $100,000. We have park improvements between Lindsay Park, Bennett, and Wallace Park. We've identified about $2 million in improvements there. We're going to talk a little bit more about this. You've got a resolution in front of you for a grant application for land and water conservation later in the meeting. We, of course, have a number of other recreation items that have already been identified and have been, which are, at the golf course, which includes facility and course rehab, golf carts, as well as maintenance equipment, and of course, at the last meeting, recreation improvements, $250,000 were that was approved to address some of our existing facilities. We have splash pad construction, that's $500,000. Of course, the boardwalk construction, $700,000. Rest stop project, $350,000. Image projects, $720,000. CDBG projects, $1,200,000. Industrial projects, $1,235,000. Airport improvements, $1 million. Convenience center, $250,000. And ambulance and other EMS equipment, $1,175,000. Of course, that's all this is over a 5-year period. Now, if we look at the actual funding component, and there again, these are the budget that you approved includes just the first year of the capital plan, the 2024 year. We have anticipated proceeds from the community facilities grant in the amount of $900,000. Sheriff has received an SRO grant, which is going to pay for 3 fully equipped vehicles. That's $170,000. We've got a joint project with Lake Paul Wallace Authority, that is $350,000, and that has to do with boardwalk construction. Anticipating issuing 8% general obligation bonds in the amount of $2 million over the 5-year period. We have something called performance contracting. This is basically a revenue bond. It has to do with being able to issue a bond based on energy savings as associated with replacing equipment such as the LED lighting and the HVAC systems, and that's $1 million. We anticipate that we can generate about $250,000 from the energy office in terms of a grant. Land and water conservation grant, $1 million. That's a maximum of $500,000 every other year. Community development block grant, $1 million. Of course, the legislative delegation earmark is included in this 5-year plan. That's $2 million. American Rescue Plan proceeds, $2,750,000. Designated fund balance that took place several years ago. That was, well, a couple of years ago. That was $500,000. Big number here is the anticipation that, you know, if you are going to want to expand recreation, it's going to require a referendum, and in order to do that, of course, that amount that is included here, anticipating $8.5 million on a GEO bond referendum. Airport grants, $1 million. Economic development funds, $1,235,000. Emergency management, $760,000. This is coming from basically their revenues to pay for the net amount for the ambulances. And then we've got operational revenues and fund balance that from general fund $1,370,000, and hospitality and accommodations tax $220,000. All total, that's $25 million. So it's a significant amount of money to be, you know, to look at over the next 5 years. Obviously, the plan is just that. It is a plan. Only the first year is actually committed, and that is in the budget that you adopted in at the last meeting. So I don't know if there's any questions about this, or I know this is this comes up later in the meeting for second reading, but of course this is the public hearing.
I do have a question, Mr. Park.
Yes, ma'am.
Looking at this 5-year plan, and let's look at 2024.
Yes.
That's what those who approved the budget said, that this is what we're going to be anticipating looking at.
Okay.
So I'm going to have you look at line item with the carts, where the golf carts and all that. We're talking about spending this amount of money for golf cart maintenance.
Well,
in
it's
2024.
actually a combination of golf carts and maintenance equipment. So it's roughly $300,000 for the parts and $300,000 for the maintenance equipment.
Do we own any of those golf carts?
We do now, from what I understand. The carts just came in. We were anticipating initially a 15-month delay in terms of when the order went in, but they came in, I believe, just the end of June. So
Let me ask this question, and you may not know the answer. April, when I went out there, I saw 39 golf carts out there.
right.
Now, that's why I want to hear from this director. 39 golf carts out there. How many of those do we own?
Zero.
Zero. So when we got into this contract, we leased these carts. Is that what I'm hearing?
Only until the new carts would be acquired.
Only until the new cart, and then they become ours.
Of course, the new carts become ours, and the old carts, go back to the former owners.
Let me help you out there just a little bit, Mr. Park. We went out to the golf course, and actually, Mr. Chairman, wasn't there a count of 44 that new carts
Yeah.
that had arrived, and all carts had arrived. We are waiting. They were waiting on the lady to come get the old carts and remove them. So the carts have been purchased and are being used.
And we were informed they're in terrible shape, the other ones.
The other ones, yeah. But those are brand new carts, and brand new stations, and everything.
And they're all electric.
They are,
too.
they are.
The carts that the county bought are all electric.
I don't know about that. I just know that I took a personal visit myself, and the young person I spoke to didn't even know who I was, and I asked about those cards, and he said, these 22 are new. So, I don't know. I'm gonna just say it up front, I don't know, but I do know that I did go up there, and I just noticed that. But then let me get to the next item on this, in this budget that I have. The next thing I want to look at, in 2024, going into 2025, we are going to be approving, I noticed that the rest stop project is not on here now, but we are tabling, what are we going to do with, I guess, would the body decide not to do anything on that?
No, that's just anticipating it's going to take till that point before a decision is made by, the council in terms of what it is that's going to be done. I didn't know how else to describe it.
I do appreciate that, but because I don't want us to mess up with 2024, and then I know that the 2026 time for that American Rescue Plan money has to be spent, and mess around and say, oh no, we forgot this. So whoever sits as finance director or whoever, I'm going to make sure that we follow through with that, because I do know that if we mess up and say, oh, we're just putting it up here for the next time, I know how things tend to get rolled over and like it's put on the back burner. And I'm not going to put that on the back burner.
Yeah.
And the next thing I have about is the ambulance. We approved that for 2024. So we're looking at anticipating the ambulance for every year?
Every year. And
That's in the
they only
projected
last
thing.
about 5 years, 5 to 6 years maximum. There's 1 year where we're anticipating that they'll do some type of refurbishing, but it really does require an ambulance each year based on what our experience has been. They get ridden very hard, I think.
I just know that with our facilities upkeep, for some reason, we're putting a lot of things, but these for building upkeep, we're not putting too much in that. But I guess that is for all of us to make that decision on and express our opinion on, because I see some grand thousands and thousands of dollars in some projects that I would consider not as important to me as a way to get these buildings improved and a way to get funding for improving this county with housing. So I know that's not in this budget.
Correct.
But I would like to see thousands and thousands, hundreds of thousands put in this budget for us to do some housing, rehabilitation for housing. So that's something I'm going to be really pushing.
Very good.
I thank you for your time.
Certainly.
Mr. Parks, just looking at
Yes,
the
sir.
capital improvement plan, what information used to come up with this capital? Did you consult with, the directors? What information went into this capital improvement plan?
We did meet with, the departments. Of course, we knew as we had worked through the process in previous years as well, what some of these items were. So we included the knowns first, and then of course we continue to make inquiry of the departments based on what they saw as their needs.
And the allocation of funds in whatever budget year, how did that come about?
It's based, there's a combination of things, because one thing we look at is we've got, like for example, with our 8% debt, we know that every 5 years or so, we generally have paid down enough debt, that we can actually reissue more debt. So that's one of the knowns that we include in terms of funding. We start with the purchase of the items, but then in the back of our minds, we're also thinking, well, how is the funding going to work? Like, for example, with land and water conservation, that grant is every other year. So we've basically planted that in 25 and 27 because we know that we make application in 24 and 26. If we get the award, it'll take place in the next year. Then we're thinking about, like, for example, looking at a general election in terms of a referendum. Obviously, 2024 referendum with proceeds coming in 2025. So those are some of the things that we took into consideration. And then we tried to look at, obviously, some of the funding we know is pretty much an annual basis. So others might be every other year, maybe, within a 5-year period. So that's kind of how we came about the funding sources and the timing of the proceeds.
So I'm looking at 2027 in Bennett and Wallace Park.
Right.
Improving parks probably is one of the most easiest things that we can do. Why is that deferred to 4 years from now?
One of the things, and we're going to talk a little bit about this when I present the request to submit the application for land and water conservation. One of the things that we've already done out at Lindsay Park, we've done the lighting, which is going to show, when we say we've done the lighting, you've approved funding for the lighting that's coming out of the local funds. So we can already show that we've had significant financial commitment. The other thing that happens with that park, for example, is we've also got the study from Barry Dunn. They focused on Lindsay Park. So, and probably the last piece of that is, if it's a park of regional significance, the maximum funding in terms of the grant is $500,000. If it's not of regional significance, the maximum grant you can get is $300,000. So my thought is, let's go ahead and focus on Lindsay Park for this application. I think it's our best chance to be able to be recognized in terms of regional significance because of the ability to hold tournaments and things like that. Then with the next application, do Wallace and Clio at that point in time, and then hopefully we can use maybe some of the recreational funds that you've already allotted to the recreation department. I know we've got the facility in Blenheim that needs to be addressed, but maybe we can use some of those proceeds to address some of the immediate needs, like the restrooms, for example, and both of those facilities really need some work. And maybe we can incorporate, maybe we can do some requests for park funds or something like that. And I didn't include the park funds in this application. I think that would be a really great way of being able to maybe address those parks sooner.
I'm looking at the most expensive line item is that 8.5 million.
Yes, sir.
That's contingent on
Referendum.
a gold bond referendum that is not necessarily
It's going to be passed.
not necessarily going to be passed. So if this is included are there any alternative ways that we're looking right now, not waiting until that vote is a yay or nay? Are there any alternatives that we're looking into right now for this capital improvement plan in the event that gold bond referendum is a no vote for the citizens? What are we doing in the interim? Are we looking at other funding sources and other things that could, or should we wait until we have, administrator, economic development, these people in place before we look at solidifying a capital improvement plan, because a person might have other ideas that might can go into this plan that can actually enhance it and relieve some of that burden of depending on a gold bond referendum to fund, one of these efforts in our county.
Well, I think that's a great point and a great discussion. And certainly one of the things we want to be able to do is demonstrate, like for example, the $2 million that was received, from the legislative delegation. I think one of the things that we need to be able to also impress upon the legislature is that we've actually utilized those funds and we've made, significant recreation improvements. So I think that's, that is a really good point, but we've got to kind of build up to that.
So just the 2024 is what's approved so far. This is just a plan of guidance to go by. I mean, it could change
correct.
Throughout 2028 could change next year.
And we
it's
could
just
come back, and of course, this is, later it's going to come up for second reading, but, of course, it can be amended as well. So you can go back and amend this 5-year plan at a future date, but we know that we've got a need to adopt this as a part of our our annual.
Do we have any information on previous capital improvement plans and some of the things that were achieved on those previous plans?
I looked at those previous capital plans, and I have to say they weren't anywhere as close to detailed as this is. So, we could go back and maybe do a little analysis, and I'd be glad to do that.
Are there any other questions? Mr. Park, let me ask you, the Plaza building in particular, but if we needed to do some
Do some renovations to it.
Right.
One of the things we do have, we've got some funding in economic development for a sign, and from what I understand, that electronic sign is not going to be required. That's like $35,000. So we could reallocate those funds. I think the issue is we really need to determine exactly what needs to be done there. From what I understand, the HVAC is a problem there.
Right, and I'm just getting ahead of ourselves because I know y'all are discussing that.
I mean, it's a part of it. It should be a part of this capital plan too.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, moving down to public hearing, ordinance 838, a ordinance authorizing the execution of a lease from Marlboro County for a property owned by Marlboro County for the property named and leased to a company named in a resolution.
Good afternoon. Speaking on this ordinance gives the county the ability to lease Marlboro County property, such as a spec building or a delta, by resolution instead of an ordinance. If we wait to do it by ordinance, it requires 3 readings, which could take up to 3 months before approval. Wherein most companies that are asking to lease property are looking to lease property immediately or within a quick period of time. By changing to or giving approval to lease by an ordinance and by a resolution instead of ordinance, that would allow us to speed up the process to, by leasing property, we're also gaining money for the county. That would allow us to get that money and not lose that opportunity of having somebody invest in our properties that we have available.
Okay, thank you. And I understand this is the 3rd reading on this, so are there any other questions?
This is the 3rd reading.
It will.
This is the public hearing.
This is the public hearing, but this
Yeah.
is the same building we were talking about for the
So all
Delta lease.
all this does is allow for a resolution and not 3 readings for it. So what we have now is you have to have 3 readings in a public hearing to rent the property. What this says is, this allows for a resolution. So we're approving to allow for a resolution. Since we've done that, we're kind of changing what we have to do to what we'll do. So if you had somebody come up now that you had to do 3 readings and a public hearing, this would allow you to do it in 1 meeting as a resolution.
Correct. And it comes in our old business when we get to the third one.
Any other questions? Thank you, Ms. Sumter. All right, moving along to old business, ordinance 837, a ordinance to approve the capital improvement plan for Marlboro County for the period of fiscal year 2024 through fiscal year 2028. This is the second reading.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Unreadiness.
All in favor?
Unreadiness.
Oh,
I still think we have time. You know, this capital improvement plan is still missing some elements. There's still some things that I think, I wouldn't say overlooked, but there's some things that needed to be ironed out. You know, I don't want to get in the habit of, just because it's the second reading, just going ahead and moving forward with it, when there could be, you know, some detours before we even get to the detour. I appreciate Mr. Parks and what he's done in providing us with this information. But I'm still thinking that capital improvement plan is not substantive enough at this time for us to be at least even moving to a second reading. I know we have a third reading of it, but when we get to the third reading, the idea gonna be like, we already did 1 or 2, we might as well go ahead and approve it because we already did it. We know now that there's some gaps in that capital improvement plan that needs to be addressed. You just talked about the plaza building. There might be some other things that, as council members, as we go and tour this county, you know, this county is more than just Bennettsville. Go to Clio, go to McCall, go to Wallace, go to Blenheim. There might be some things in those county spaces that need to be addressed in capital improvement as well. If we're not looking outside of what's needed for Bennettsville, and our county is continuing to fall apart because it's might not be popular opinion, but Marlboro County is not just Bennettsville. It's the entire county. There might be some areas, how we talk to some of the mayors of these other, you know, cities and ask them about capital improvement that still fall within the range of the county. Those are type things that I think if we begin to look outside of the box of Bennettsville, we can move Marlboro County as a full county versus as a piece of a part. So my objection is, you know, I don't think we're ready to be approving the capital improvement plan when we haven't really looked at if this is the best capital improvement plan that there is.
what are the consequences of delaying this?
You had a motion.
Ms. Sumter, or?
You had a motion and a second. You called for a motion, but now you still got to call for a vote.
He's still,
We're still in discussion.
Doing all that, you could have a discussion, doing a motion and a second motion, you could still have a discussion. Still have a discussion. And like I say, piggyback off on Dr. Johnson there, a lot of the time in the capital improvement plan, we always have the department heads come in and tell us what they would like to see done. And I don't know what this was done in that realm, because we had so many different, with Mr. West and Ms. Sumter filling in the gap for so many. We don't know do we know the department heads had any input on this? And like I say, if we do not have to vote on it, Marlboro County can never grow, and I said this in 2006 since I've been on council, that Marlboro County we're never gonna grow to our outside area show improvement. And we know that Benefit is the hub and the centerpiece, but until we can look into other areas like Dr. Johnson mentioned, down in the Blenheim area, in McCall, in Clio and Wallace, that also let's talk to some of the areas that said, look, what do y'all want? What would Clio like to have in the next 5 years to improve the citizens in the Clio area, in citizens of the Dunbar area, in Blenheim area? We don't have to do quick to judge. on the capital improvement. And you're right, with that, things could change. 20, we're talking about 4 years down the road, 4 or 5 year plan. We know it's not in stone, we can always go back and revisit, correct? Okay, and that's if we can go back and revisit, that give everybody an out, or an opportunity to revisit, you know. Yeah, we got a motion and a second, but we're still in a motion of discussion. And nobody want this motion to die, but we also want to be fully compatible, you know, and talk to it as a council. You know, we don't have to, like, if we don't make a decision today, Ms. Sumner, what will the ratification will be? If we don't do a second reading, what I'm asking.
Okay, we still have the opportunity to do it again and to make sure that we have it done, I think, by the end of August.
August.
And one of my reasons, I just, you know, Mr. Parks, you said that, you know, the previous capital improvement plan haven't really been detailed, but we approved them. We voted on them like it was just another thing in the air just because it was presented. Let's vote on it because it's that we have to get out of that habit of just voting because it's in front of us. Let's spend some time. Let's love on it a little bit so we'll know what's in this capital improvement plan, so we know if that $500,000 that we're allocating towards this particular project, even if it's in year 2027, we know that's a necessary, you know, project, not because, you know, it's a yearly thing that we always have to vote on. It's being presented to us. We just got to do the first reading, the second reading. That lackadaisical attitude, I think, is one of the reasons we're in the position that we're in now, because there hadn't been a lot of scrutiny of the thing that has been presented to, you know, council. And if, you know, the past capital improvement plan have been lackluster and we approved them without any scrutiny, what does that say about this, you know, if we're gonna take upon this role as council members? You know, I think we just need to do a little bit better judgment and scrutiny of the things that are being presented to us. So, you know, I'm confident when I go out and somebody asks me why I voted for this or why I didn't vote for that. I'm confident to be able to express, you know, that because I do my homework. I'm not saying I'm perfect, but I try to do the best as I can because I know I'm not representing Damian Johnson up here. I'm not representing me. I could care. I'm fine. Me and I hate to say that, but me and my little hub, we're great. But I know a lot of people that are not, that I represent. And so when I'm up here, I'm looking at their interests versus my interests.
Well, this is only the second reading, so we can still come back and.
But why approve the second reading if we know we got to come back to it?
If we got to, by August, then we don't have as much time as y'all think. I mean, we can hold up on the third reading. If we need to hold up on it, let's hold up on it. But that's the second reading. Not gonna hold us up from doing anything.
Mr. Park.
But save us maybe in the end, so we don't have to have 2 more meetings. That's all. I mean, that I'm saying.
Mr. Park, didn't you say that this was the most detailed with the input from the different heads of each department that we've had?
It is.
Okay.
And I agree on the third reading. If we need to slow it down, do something different, let's do it, you know.
Well, Councilman Odom, what if there's something in McCall that's in the county limits that might need to be included in this capital improvement plan, that if you go back to your constituents and say, look, we're in the process of doing a capital improvement plan for Marlboro County. What's something that McCall would like to see in this capital improvement plan? Blenheim, Clio, I think that's the way to engage that process. So now, you know, we have different things to be able to go to. For us to approve this, you know, plan without necessarily even talking to our constituents, that the one that we represent, I think is a disservice to them. Because there might be something that should be included in this capital improvement plan that fall outside the jurisdiction of 29512.
Well, the second reading keeps the process going, and you're right, we can, like Steve said, we can pause between the second and the third reading if there's something that Clive, McCall, or Blenheim, or Wallace needs and stuff.
And I
but we don't need to stop the process to
I
work.
agree wholeheartedly with that. If we need to, let's do it.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to say this: when there's something that's wrong and you identify it, you don't need to move forward just because it pushes the can on down the road. Now, we've identified several line items that that we're not satisfied with. I know it's a couple of line items in the capital improvement that I'm not satisfied with. And then you change that. You change it, and if you change it, then you bring it back for a second reading. I mean, you know, if you have to have a call meeting, we just have to have a call meeting and have a third one to approve it. But still, when you see things wrong, you just can't keep on doing things that we've always done, which is just vote for it. We'll catch it on the third time, because the third time we won't, just like we haven't before. You know, we won't.
Discussion about it.
You know, we need to identify it now. Let everybody know what we see wrong, what we want changed. Go back to your constituents, go back to the mayors, ask them about their capital improvement desires, and then bring it back for a second reading.
The bottom line is we're up against the deadline in August, and we don't want to have to start the whole process over again. It'll be too late. And I don't see a problem with having the second reading. And you're right, Mr. Stroman, we found some deficiencies that we need to address, but they need to be addressed between now and the time that we do the final vote on it.
Why would you approve something that you know is wrong, Mr.?
I hadn't heard anything wrong. I just heard there was some
you don't agree with.
discrepancies.
Why would you approve something that you don't agree with when you know you don't agree with it?
Bottom line is we've had a motion and a second, and we've got the vote.
We got the vote.
Well, you're not the chairman, so you can't.
Okay, well, I'm calling us to a vote, so, for ordinance 837, all in favor? All opposed?
Abstain.
Okay, 4-3, 1 abstention.
Motion passes. Motion passes.
It carries. Who abstained? I'm sorry. Thank you.
We will get these items addressed. And, so, if we need to get a little committee together. All right, moving to ordinance 838, a ordinance authorizing the execution of a lease from Marlboro County for a property owned by Marlboro County for the property named and leased to a company named in a resolution. This is the third reading.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we set the ordinance of 838.
Second. Okay, motion and a second. All in favor? Any abstentions? Any against? You got the count, Ms. Rivers? All right, moving to discussion of Phase 2 recreation project. Anybody want to start off? Well, what do we have, do we have scheduled on the money?
Of course, Phase 2 has, is the Olympic-sized pool and the multi-purpose recreation facility. It's an $8.5 million project.
And all that is contingent on
All
that,
that is contingent on
that bond referendum.
the bond referendum, and of course, let me just speak slightly to that. Obviously, it's more than just capital improvement, because when you're looking at being able to operate a facility, you've got to have an ability to levy operational millage. This would, when we're looking at a bond referendum, I think we're really looking at a special purpose district for recreation, so that you have the ability to levy taxes to make up the difference between what you generate in terms of fees to cover operations. So it's really two parts to this, because it's one thing to be able to pay for the facility itself from bond proceeds, is another thing to be able to actually fund the operations of that. So.
And I know we had the current pool that's out there at our,
Correct.
at the golf course.
Have we had any input from the recreation director at all?
Have you? Have
Yeah,
you?
you know, because we talking about recreation, project, and he the AD. We are council members, you know, although we are knowledgeable in recreation, many of us are knowledgeable in recreation, but the AD should have some input, on this matter, along with the golf pro, because it will be held, it will be at the facility. So we do, you know, this item to me, I think something we need to table until we get the AD and the golf pro, so we could sit down and talk with them and see what kind of vision
And we
they
had
have.
that scheduled for,
This Thursday.
This Thursday, so we will be looking at the pool this Thursday.
Would the AD be there, the reverend director? Make sure
Well, we
he
can
would
make
be
sure,
there.
He will, Mr. Williams will be out of town.
Have you looked at that pool?
we have Mr. Stroman and myself.
How many people you think can fit in that pool at one time?
Well, that's one of the issues I was gonna say.
Yeah, so that's not even,
VHEC already says only 50 people can get in that pool.
that's what I'm saying, so that's not.
But, you're not letting me finish. But the redoing the pumps and all that, pool deck and everything, we're gonna easily, I think, rough estimate, 200,000.
100,000, yeah.
And I think.
Throwing good money at bad. I mean,
Exactly.
I
agree.
I just, if I may, just discussion of Phase 2 recreation project, I think all recreation, the thing, I mean, water attraction, I think we got to go back to we've got a plan to move forward with what we're doing with ARPA money, but I think we need a separate meeting to come up with, you know, contingencies of what we done, what ain't gonna work, and move forward, so we'll have a plan. I agree with Mr. Woods, Councilman Woods at this time. I think we table discussion until we come up with an actual workshop to discuss it.
But that was mainly why nothing's been done out there, because it is a substantial amount of work that needs to be done to the current pool, and it was our thoughts.
If we need to move forward with a referendum, I think we have to give some direction to say, keep moving forward or don't move forward. So we need to have a plan, because it probably takes a while to be able to get on the ballot. So it probably, as early as we can give staff some direction of what direction we want to go in as council members, then they would know. So I think we need to have a workshop shortly to be able to give
We got
that.
the voter director over there, we can ask her, ma'am,
No.
how long does it take, how long will it take to put a referendum on the ballot? How much time do you need? How much time do we need? Do you know? We're not gonna hold you
If you want
to
a special election.
No,
Just for that. We would need at least 60 days.
it. Gotcha.
90 days.
Good.
Mr. Parr, you said a special recreation.
Well, what we're talking about is a special purpose district.
So if a
for
special
recreation.
purpose district, if that specifically have to be utilized for what you say that special purpose
Well,
district.
it would give the authorization to form, a district to pay for the operations of recreation, as well as, obviously, if you're gonna, include new facilities, there's gotta be a bond referendum as well. But I think you need both operating millage and debt service millage to really have the type of recreation program that I think y'all are talking about.
Mr. Parr, does this not address, we had a citizen come forward to us a couple months ago, express her concern about recreation, and when she made the point to say, so if we want recreation to spend, we, children who can't afford the pool and all that, we have to pay for our recreation through a tax increase, which is their bond referendum. So really and truly, we're gonna impose taxes to people to say, I want you to have recreation, do you want it? If you want it, you're gonna have to vote yes for it. But if you don't want it, that shows that you don't want recreation in Marlboro County, so you're gonna vote no.
Well,
And
if you
guess
want
what?
new facilities, you want expanded recreation, expanded facilities, I don't see any way to do it outside of having
But
a referendum.
I think, the money that was allocated through the state legislature and through ARPA, I think people will have been more in agreement to do the referendum for the upkeep, not for the build it and the upkeep, but when we had the money to build it. If the recreation opportunity were here and we would say, look, we got it, now we need to make sure that it's operational and continue to pay for it. So, but to tell the people, look, if y'all want it, y'all got to pay for it to get built. and pay for it to get,
Keep it
you know, to
up.
keep it up. When we had money, and I just saw in that capital improvement plan in 2024, there's gonna be over $2 million spent just on the golf course. That just doesn't sit well with the majority of the people. And I know we don't rehash this over and over again, but if you look at the optics of that doesn't look right to tell people that they will have to pay for the build their own facility and to pay for it to upkeep it when we got money to overtake a facility and threw all the money into the upkeep and the beautification of it. That just doesn't it just doesn't sit well.
That's why I couldn't vote for the capital plan. That's what I was asking, even with the budget. All of that was already in the budget, and I kept saying it. But like I said, I'm saying this. I'm the one with all the questions, and I'll say it again. I saw that in that plan, and I would never agree with that.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we table, discussion of phase 2 recreation. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
You're talking for your motion. We've been kicking this can down the road for a long time. Every time we begin to talk about the water attractions, we find a way to table it. We find a way to move it on down the road. Guys, we are seen as purchasing an exclusive country club and utilizing all money for this exclusive country club. The day that most of the citizens don't feel like they're part of it. But and every time that we're talking about doing something for them, we got to think about this some more. Oh, we got to kick the can down the road. We've got to do better than this. We need to start this project, get this project started, get it moving, get it going. It was 103 degrees today with not one person having a cool-off spot here to go to in Marlboro County, other than where not the crocodiles, the alligators are. You know, it doesn't make any sense for us to be up here saying that we have $2 or $3 million available and we can't start the water attractions down near the golf course. The golf course has made money. It will prove itself out. That's fine. But we, at this time, really need to get the water attraction moving down there. And if there's a referendum, if it should have been a referendum for the golf course, then we should have spent the money on the water attraction. That's actually what should have happened. But we didn't do that. So why are we going to hold on to this money another month, another 2 months, another 3 months, and not have any place for the citizens don't even see they don't even see that we're starting to provide anything for them.
Mr. Parks, going to what Mr. Councilman Strobel just said, that $2-3 million that we know that we have allocated, is there something as a starter that we can do, with that money to at least move into that direction? And so if we are going to put a referendum on the ballot, our citizens can see that, look, we have at least moved forward, to give them the option of wanting to vote for it or not.
Well, you've allocated, in previous votes, you allocated the majority of the American Rescue Funds. We know that, the last meeting, $250,000 was reallocated towards addressing existing recreational facilities.
That was already money that was already earmarked. So
right, that was already earmarked. Then, of course, you've got $1,150,000 from the legislative delegation that has not been appropriated. $350,000 of that was appropriated to the boardwalk at Lake Paul Wallace, and $500,000 to the splash pad. So the balance of that is available to you to make to allocate that towards, whatever it is that you wanted to do in terms of recreation. Of course, this evening you've got I'll have an item here, of course, applying for a grant for the Land and Water Conservation grant to address, $1 million project. Lindsay Park, that would take 500,000 of the proceeds from the the legislative delegation, which would still leave 500,000 with the splash pad, and then another 650,000 on top of that.
Listen, once again, we know, we've said this for the 100th time. We will delay the splash pad and move it forward to the pool portion of it, the water portion of it. We will do, you can rearrange your schedule. We can rearrange the funding for everything and still get everything done. The priority is the water attractions down there. That is the priority. And to say in the type pool system that we're looking at, it already incorporates a splash pad. So that's not, those funds will be automatically moved up to there. You understand what I'm saying? So you're still looking at about $2 million there. And if you can't build a pool and some water attractions for $2 million, I'm not saying run it, but you can get it started. We have to do what we have to do later on, but we can get this project moving. That's what I'm saying to this council. I'm asking you to please, let's get this project off the road, the water attraction portion.
I'm not disagreeing with your ideas and the water park. I'm not